Hello friends, this is Sam, Witch of the Woods again. I'm sorry I ran a little late. I'm trying to get the glare off of my face, not all that successfully. So yeah, I thought, seeing as it is May Day or Beltane or whatever you choose to call it, it's today, and it's this celebration of all this kind of fiery energy, and that's kind of how everyone builds it up going into the summer season. Yeah, I thought, why not do something on creative energies? Not to mention the fact that personally I have run into a few people, just a few friends this last week, that have had some issues around their own creative process. So it just kind of made me curious in terms of just kind of seeing what's going on with the energy that is changing and shifting. I mean, obviously for months now, I know I've talked about it. I know plenty of other readers and people have talked about it. This is going to bug me so much. Okay, I think that's better. Thank you. But people have been talking about it for months, about how all the energy is shifting, and and it is. And I think there was just another shift in terms of we were kind of just settling into this new energy, and then it kind of shifted again. And the maybe most tangible way of looking at that is how we're seeing stuff reopening, and like all the fears around that and stuff, or all of the zeal around that for some people, and obviously on a very local level, we're seeing it in terms of this sort of gradual reopening in Nashville, and then it getting pulled back and stuff like that. So yeah, I just thought, why not look at the creative energies, how those are affecting everyone and all that jazz. We had a jumper, the Hermit. Well, I guess that's pretty appropriate right now, seeing as so many people are still self-isolating and all of that. And in some ways, I would bet you that people feel potentially even more isolated right now, just because there is such markedly different opinions when it comes to what we should be doing about reopening stuff or not reopening stuff. I mean, even just, in a group of friends that you may be encountering all the time anyway, be very surprised that some people have some very strong opinions about what is happening out there in the world and what we should be doing about it. So I think with those kinds of surprises in, maybe more intimate circles, when you think you're all kind of on the same page, can potentially be a little more just potentially a little more isolating, because it's unexpected. And like I said, you kind of expect to be on the same page with people that you're really friendly with and really close to and stuff. So anyway, creative energies. So the first thing that's coming up is redemption, and that in the Rider-Waite deck is the Judgment card. So this is right where we are right now, and what this is very indicative of is how we are we're undergoing this massive transformation right now, and we're actually we're in a position where we are able to uncover sort of like this diamond in the rough, or this, you know, the gold within the lead, the alchemical process of turning lead into gold. And right here, right now, and this is regardless of what you're doing or what you're able to do with your time at home, regardless of that. Because again, like I said last week, there's no wrong way to quarantine. This is just speaking to the space that we're in right now collectively, with the energy that's kind of swirling around everyone. We are primed to kind of take the next steps toward whatever it is that we want, you know, toward the things that we want to make manifest, and the things that we want to see in the world, the things that we want to accomplish for ourselves and our families and all that stuff. So that's where we are right now. Crossing us is the Eight of Swords, which, you know, looks uncomfortable, and typically it is. So what this is saying is that, you know, we're still in that struggle right now of kind of trying to figure out where we need to take our blinders off and where we don't, or figure out where we're kind of maybe being a little willfully ignorant, or even blinding ourselves to our own true wants and desires and things like that. Even as far as muting within ourselves the very ideas and inspirations that are really trying to spring forth, and we're kind of tamping them. And we can take those blinders off at any moment. We're just kind of choosing not to, because to do that would be very, very uncomfortable. To do that would, you know, potentially make family uncomfortable, or loved ones uncomfortable, or work uncomfortable, you know. So a lot of people would just rather keep all that on. Underneath everything is the Five of Wands. So what we're kind of seeing is that this energy, that, you know, the creative forces within us are not just being hampered within ourselves. They're kind of being hampered interpersonally as well, and that can show up in ways like, you know, just trying to share ideas with a trusted friend and it being shot down, or maybe a friend not being in a place where they can receive that, or, you know, or support that, or foster that, because, you know, everyone's got their own shit going on right now. And so if we internalize their apathy or negativity or anything like that, then, you know, then we take that on in a big way. And right now it's kind of hard to separate that. So that's kind of just what we're looking at, like, beneath everything. You know, we're not just having this struggle within ourselves, we're having this struggle with people, with, you know, the people around us too. And, you know, and in the meantime, we're all still trying to, you know, plan and manage our lives in the million different ways that looks. And it is a struggle, you know. Things have not gotten easier, really. And they may not for a little while. All right, so next card that we have is the Three of Cups. And this is the relatively recent past. So, you know, this is speaking to this sort of nostalgia for a return to normalcy, because it's like we're romanticizing this, you know, period just, you know, not even 2 months ago, where everything seemed like it was normal, and like the way that people are remembering it is in a very romanticized way, like, oh, I was just on the cusp of this, or oh, I was just starting to do this, and oh, this was about to come together, you know, I've been working on this for so long. So it was like a very, in our memories, it feels like a very celebratory period. And to be perfectly honest, like, I can totally speak to this in my own life too. I mean, personally, like, and for me, it was at work. For me, I had just gotten a promotion with like a 3-step raise that was involved, and all of this stuff shot that down the drain. Might be on track again, but we'll see. But anyway, like that's what I'm talking about. You know, just all of these sort of lofty things that were coming together and coalescing, and then boom, they weren't. And it feels like it's very draining to a lot of people. So, this is the fairy godmother. All the people above and above and above talking to us. So, this is just more like encouraging us to, I'm sorry, I'm so slow tonight. I'm so tired. I put up that I was doing this live last night, not anticipating how fucking tired I was going to be tonight. And I wasn't going to just not do it. Anyway, so thank you for bearing with me. So anyway, the fairy godmother is, you know, kind of like what the spiritual input and aspects of this are. And it's really just saying, you know, that if it sounds really hokey, but it's kind of like this ask and you shall receive thing, you know, like if you put your heart into it and, you know, mean well, good intentions, all this kind of stuff, like the overarching forces of the universe are still looking out for you, even if it doesn't feel like that. And, you know, and don't get me wrong, like I have struggled with that idea for a very, very long time. So I can absolutely empathize and sympathize if that is hard to wrap your head around. You know, I've been on my path for, I don't know, 15 years, and it's only been like really, really recently that I've kind of finally started to grasp it. But anyway, this is indicating that the things that you've wanted, the things that you've poured your heart into and your energy into and your passion into, they're not gone. They might be on the back burner and they might require some patience to get there, but they are not forgotten about, maybe just paused. And they're sort of giving encouragement that like they, once the time is right, are going to help see those things through to fruition. So then we move forward a little bit, and this is the Nine of Wands. And this is stuff that's just like kind of coming up. And this kind of shows that the sort of gradual winding down of this energy, this like sort of chaotic swirling energy that we're all struggling to adjust to, for lack of a better word. And this shows that that is winding down and coming to an end. And once it does, you know, we will feel that creative force, and those creative juices kind of return full force, and know where they're from, know what they mean, feel really tapped and tuned into it and all that good stuff. But we might feel a little worse for wear at that point. Just in terms of like still kind of just trying to process everything that has been going on, and you know, everyone trying to still manage their own lives and the million different variables that come with that. But in terms of like our life force and our creative source and all of that stuff, you know, it's gonna return and feel very vibrant and alive, but at the same time, you're going to have to kind of reconcile this part of you that is still processing all of this insanity, and not beat yourself up so much if you don't feel it return immediately, and also don't beat yourself up if oh my goodness, I'm at such a loss for words. Don't beat yourself up also if you feel like you're not processing fast enough, or you feel like you're not being productive with these ideas fast enough, you know? Again, there is no handbook for how to navigate this situation, because in our lifetimes it hasn't happened. But, you know, just taking the time and the pause to be kind to yourself, you know, and compassionate with yourself and gentle with yourself, you know, as these energies, as these, you know, collective energies kind of settle, and then like your individual energy creatively returns, you know, just be gentle with it. That's all. And be gentle with yourself, you know. It's not going anywhere. It will always be there for you, and it'll always be accessible to you, even if there's sort of like a sense of panic that it won't. But yeah, so moving on, we have the Five of Swords. So this is, you know, what are we going to do about all this business? And what this is kind of saying is that, you know, we need to pick our battles, and, you know, in terms of what we're talking about with these ideas and these projects and things like that, that, you know, we might have been working on for some time, you know, kind of like I was talking about before, there might feel like there's this struggle with, you know, like adjusting to kind of like the new norm, and then also like having your own stuff come back up and feel like you're ready and raring to go with it, but then, you know, possibly, you know, still having like work commitments and readjusting to that, and, you know, still having family commitments and whatever the new norm has become with that, and you know, just managing all of these different things. And so it can kind of get overwhelming, and it can kind of feel like a lot very fast, and really kind of put the kibosh on whatever it is that you have had stirring creatively, or that, you know, whatever has been stirring you that has wanted to be birthed through you and your individual voice. And so it can be kind of extra frustrating to have all of those possible elements of conflict potentially align. And so this is just saying that, you know, in this time, in this space, just, you know, pick your battles, and see where you can compromise without losing an integral part of yourself. You know, because that creative life force that moves through you, you know, is important. And again, it is important to come through you through your individual voice, because it will never come through anyone else like that ever again. So do not lose that. And don't be so keen to allow it to be compromised or sacrificed first. You know, this kind of speaks to that whole, you know, you have to fill your cup before you can fill anyone else's, you know, and this is the stuff that fills our cup up. So, coming in from the outside, we have Prince of Wands. This is this sort of this is kind of that overarching feeling of like, okay, I need to go, I need to do, I need to act, you know, and that can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. You know, it just depends on how it's balanced or if it's in moderation or anything like that. There's this sense of like, you know, like when you talk about the divine masculine or the divine feminine, you know, I don't know if anyone watching knows about that, but the divine masculine, you know, spiritually speaking, the divine masculine is the aspects of all beings, not just male or female or whatever. It's aspects within everybody and every soul. And the divine masculine is the part that acts and does and sort of makes things tangible. Whereas the divine feminine is a more receptive kind of mode. And it's sort of like, for lack of a better, oh my goodness, for lack of a better metaphor, I guess, you can kind of think about it in terms of like how a baby is birthed, or not birthed, but, you know, how a baby is made, because the women are the receptive part of that. There is a seed being planted, it gestates, and then it is birthed through the women. So that's the difference here. We're not looking at being in the receptive mode after this. We're looking more at being in that very active, fiery, creative, make it tangible in the universe energy, because we're looking at masculine energy here. And it is going to be very fiery, and it is going to be very much like feeling like there's this exciting call to action. And again, this is kind of struck with that whole idea of, you know, what we were talking about before, just watch where things come into conflict, because that is more than likely going to happen. Watching where things are coming into conflict and being careful not to sacrifice so much of yourself in that. But what I was saying also about the this card being all, you know, having a good side and a bad side. Bad's probably a strong word, but just saying that this same kind of masculine fiery energy can incite us to bring forth what we've been waiting to bring forth, but it can also kind of be perceived as that external pressure from people around us, or even just society, you know, this sort of idea that like, okay, things are back to normal, quote unquote. Things are back to normal, you know, everyone get back to doing exactly what they were doing, the way they were doing it, you know, and, you know, all of these messages that we get, like, oh gosh, I had it and I lost it, you know, like, you only have value if you're busy, or you only have value if you're overworking yourself, you know, fuck that shit. And that could still go the route of harnessing creative energy, because there could potentially be people around you who know that you were trying to work on stuff. If you were trying to work on stuff, whether it was prior to all this insanity happening, or whether it was during self-isolation or something like that, and people kind of putting pressure on you to be like, hey, whatever happened to that thing? Like, oh, are you done with it yet? Are you still doing it? And that's sort of, it just, you know, just feeling like a peer pressure thing, almost like a very juvenile peer pressure thing. And people saying like, oh no, like I'm just asking, but it can feel more like poking the bear. And, you know, just, it's a matter of watching how that energy is struck, and, you know, how much of a central will you have to tell people to go fuck themselves, basically, you know, which I don't have an immense problem with. So, anyway, moving right along, this is 5 of Cups, and as you can see, it looks a little dismal, but that's not inherently bad for what we're looking at and where it sits, because right here is that spot where it's talking about kind of like just what we're hoping and fearing, and I don't often see this spot as being both of them. It's usually one or the other, and it depends on how positive or negative that card is, and so this is pretty negative. So this is just kind of something that we are afraid of right now, you know, in coming out of all of this madness, and how it's going to affect us personally, especially, you know, in the things we knew and loved, and how we're going to play that out. You know, and there is this fear that almost like, well, what if my creative stuff never comes back to me? Or what if I never have the energy again to do this creative stuff ever again? Or what if I have to completely reinvent the way that I was doing things before, you know? And just maybe a minor example of this is, you know, writers who got stressed out and got writer's block and are terrified that, like, they'll never write again. Or, you know, like, how long will it be till we have concerts and festivals again, and, you know, musicians can make their living again, that kind of thing. You know, it's these very personal, central fears to the individual, about, like, it's that fear of the unknown, and that is not an individual thing, that is a collective thing. There is an intense and massively deep fear of the unknown. That is why so many people fear change. And I'm not criticizing anyone, because I'm one of them. But that's kind of what we're looking at. Like, we don't know really and truly what's on the other side of this, and what the next new norm is going to look like. So this is just kind of speaking to those things. And then the very, very last card is the outcome, and this is the Ace of Cups, which is not a bad card to end on. This is actually something I like, or I like to see, particularly in regards to what we're talking about. This is kind of trying to just impart some hope and optimism, saying that, you know, even though there is this tremendous fear that on the other side of this, we don't know what may lie there, even though we've kind of been given some encouragement along the way that, you know, stuff's going to come back, stuff's going to be reinvigorated within us. This is showing that, you know, we are approaching the dawn of our own new age, you know. So for the people who have been working on things throughout all of this, or prior to all of this, that had that energy really thrown wildly off kilter or stunted, anything like that, this is showing that there are already new beginnings in the pipeline, and to not give up on those things. And you have things coming that are worth being excited about, you know, and you know, this is saying, please do what makes you happy, plant those seeds, and then feed them, water them, grow them, and you will get the fruits of your labor out of that. So yeah, like I said, I take that as a very optimistic thing, and you know, it's just kind of a matter of getting over, I don't want to say this initial hump, because it's like the second or third hump, I guess, and who knows how many more humps there will be. But for what we're looking at right here, right now, this sort of snapshot of maybe the next month to couple months, you know, sort of just like bear this in mind and take it as encouragement. Like, obviously, it's like, this is temporary. Now, things may be different afterwards, but the way that we are living now is temporary. And the things that are centrally important to us, that feed our souls and all of that stuff, will come back, and they will come back with greater clarity as well. That's worth noting. that if there was ever any confusion about which route you were supposed to be going or what you're supposed to be doing with the stuff you've been getting, that will become clear. Right now, we're all kind of undergoing this wild transition, and the best thing we can do is ride the dragon. That's all we can do. But it's important that we don't stifle it. We have to feel it, because if we don't feel it, we don't learn anything. So just know that if there's any question about that or confusion about what's going on with stuff you've been getting, it's going to become clear. And so that is also something to look forward to. So that is pretty much all I have. I tried to keep it so short again and still ran for a half hour, so I apologize. But yeah, so that's what I have for this one. I will probably be back again next weekend sometime to do a reading on whatever comes up. And after I'm done with this, I will throw the link in the comments for my Patreon. I do stuff like this, you know, monthly readings, weekly readings. There's all kinds of offerings and stuff on there, you know, if you're interested. Again, just stuff like this. And I will also throw my email down there in the event y'all want to donate. By no means any obligation to, but it will be there if you are so moved to. Aw, thank you so much. That's so sweet. But yeah, I'll throw that down there, and I will probably see you guys next week. Have a good night. Bye.